Cool. Just picking up on something that Pete said there. I don't think that Pete and I have met in real life before. If we have, I'm going to be a little bit embarrassed. Okay, excellent. But Pete probably could describe me quite well, I think, or be able to give you some words that he would associate with me, things that he knows that I've done. And I think that is a really great lead into what I'm going to be talking to you about, because we all have a personal brand, whether we like it or not. And some of you might think, personal brand, what is that? It's a horrible thing. It's things I see on TikTok or Instagram with people, you know, the get rich quick things, stood next to the fancy cars and all that kind of thing. And that is some of the negative side of personal branding. However, we do all have a brand, and it's up to us to decide what it is that we want to stand for and think about how we're going to channel that in our future careers, or whether you go on to have a business or whatever it might be. So I only have 20 minutes with you, so I've got so much that I want to share with you. And I think a lot of what I'm going to be sharing is around planting seeds and getting you to think about what you might want to be known for, and some ideas around how you can be more visible as you progress throughout your careers. So a little bit about me, and sadly, as I'm now in my mid-40s, telling my story feels like it takes quite a long time. I still feel like I'm really young, and then I think, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this, and it makes me feel ancient. But quick history, I went off to uni in Leeds after doing my A-levels, because I thought that's what you should do, and I wanted to be a fashion buyer, realised that you had to live in London to be a fashion buyer, and I thought that was really scary, because I'm from Newcastle, and Leeds felt really scary at that time. It felt so much bigger than Newcastle. I laugh about that a bit now, because I did end up working in London for about 8 years when I had my first job after I graduated with John Lewis. And I did actually get to experience being a fashion buyer very briefly on a buying trip when I was head of graduate recruitment for the John Lewis partnership, and I was learning about that role. And actually, one of the things that I would like to sow as a seed is London isn't that scary, and actually it did massively help me in terms of career opportunities. And I think whenever you get any opportunities to say yes to things that feel a bit scary, I think you should take them, especially when you don't have very many responsibilities when you're a bit younger, and you can just try things out. And if it's a bit rubbish, it doesn't work out, you can try something new. So that would be something I'd like to leave you with. So I had the corporate career at John Lewis, did 12 years there. Ended up moving back to Newcastle for the last couple of years and commuting down to London. Now, anyone that's got the train from Newcastle to London knows that's not much fun. So I then looked for an opportunity to have a job back in the Northeast. I couldn't find anything that was similar to what I was doing at that point in time, so I set up my first business. That business was a graduate recruitment and employability consultancy, where we worked with loads of employers to design their assessment processes and materials. And then we also worked with universities to prepare their students to get graduate jobs. And it was dead fun, because we used to hire out football stadiums, hired out St James's Park, Anfield. I could tell you about pretty much every football stadium and rugby stadium in the country. And we used to hire them out, and we'd put students through these mock assessment centres. It was dead fun, loved it. And I got a very strong reputation in that field, to the point where, and it was the last speaker was just talking about you being approached by employers, I got approached by someone that wanted to buy that business. So I ended up selling it. So that's a very short version to that story. And went on to set up the business that I have today, which is called Moja, and it's a PR agency where we specialise in raising the profiles of founders. Now, the reason why I was able to jump between these roles, so having a corporate career, starting that first business, selling it and setting up another business the day that I left that business, was all because I had a personal brand. I didn't really realise that's what it was at the time, but I was getting known for things. I was getting known for the fact that I'd written a few books. I did a TEDx talk. I had been on TV, and all of these things were a bit of a snowball effect, because when I was saying yes to one opportunity, 5 other things would happen, and I'd get invited to do X, Y, and Z. You then get to a point where you have to decide what you're going to say no to, because if you spend your time doing all the extra things, then you don't actually get paid for doing the stuff that pays the bills. So you do need to think about that. But what I then realised was that I do have a brand, and I can leverage that to do things that I really want to do. So for me at the moment, it was setting up a new business in a completely different area. But also it's been really helpful in terms of the charity work that I do, which is really, really important to me. And I will touch on charity work a bit later. So I'm on LinkedIn as well. So if anyone does want to connect with me. And has anyone not got a LinkedIn profile yet? So quite a few of you. Right. I am going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, I think, and I would encourage everyone to have a LinkedIn profile. Even if you don't think you've got a lot to go on there at the moment, you will have things that you can put on there, and employers will find you on there. And the amount of opportunities that I've been offered through LinkedIn, even when I wasn't hugely active on it, I would definitely recommend that you have even a basic profile. So I want to play a game because I've heard you're quite quiet, and it's the slot before lunch, right? So we need a little bit of energy. And I want to play a game, and I want you to tell me some words that you associate with these people, okay? So we're going to start with the left. Do we all know who this is on the left? Elon Musk. Yeah, give me some words that you associate with him. Anything. Rich. Tesla. Yeah, so some of his brands. Yeah, anything else? Huh? Tesla. Yeah, we've had that one. So we've got Tesla, we've got SpaceX, we've got Rich. Ketamine. Oh my God. Wow. Is he known for taking that? I didn't know that, so that's a new fact that I've learned today. He's a bit of a druggie. Great. Any sort of negative words you might associate with him, other than the drugs? Might be negative. Anything? Far right? Yeah, he's definitely getting a name for that now, isn't he? Anything else? Anything else we associate with Elon? Quite cutthroat. Yeah, very businessy. Okay, right, let's move on. Kate Middleton. What do we associate with Kate? Come on, give me some words. Royal family. She's royal. Yes, she is now. Elegant. Yeah, I always get that with Kate. She's definitely elegant. Anything else? Rich? Sorry? Hair. She's got hair? What, do we like her hair? It's glossy, it's lovely. Yeah, no, she has. She's got lovely hair. Lovely hair. Yeah, all right, let's move on. What about Donald Trump? And there's always a word that I get associated with him. Can you guess what it is? Orange. Yes, give that person a prize. Okay, what else do we associate with Trump? Sorry? What was that? He's a fascist. That's a word that a lot of people would associate with him. Yeah. Irresponsible. Are there any positive words that you would be able to associate with Donald Trump? He was in World War II. Oh, Home Alone 2. Right, God, I need my ears tested. He was in Home Alone 2. That's positive. We all love Home Alone. It's a great film. Yeah. Okay, anything else positive you might associate with Trump? He's a genius. There might be some debate on that one. Okay, last one. Who, the one on the end, what do we associate with Kylie Jenner? Travis Scott. Anything else? Any positive words, any negative words, Popular? She's definitely popular, isn't she? Popular. Successful businesswoman? Anything else? Fake. Ooh, yeah, I like that one. Okay, so has anyone in this room met any of these people? No? Yet we can all, whether we shouted it out or not, associate words with all of these people, right? So I like to do this exercise. I like to change up who I've got on there. I've had some quite interesting characters over the last year because there's lots going on in the world, isn't there? But I always like to do this exercise because I think it's so powerful just to be able to realise that we can all describe these people and we all have positive, negative, a bit of in between for all of these people. Yet we've never met them. Although I did do this exercise once and someone had met Elon Musk, which was interesting. But no one had ever met all of them, okay? So I think that really does illustrate exactly what I'm saying there around we all have a brand and it's up to us, you know, what we want to be known for. So I've got a little definition here about your personal brand, so about what makes you you. So these are some questions, I guess, that you could be thinking about in terms of how you would describe yourself and what you stand for. Now, if you find some of these questions, you're not too sure what you would answer with these questions if I was to ask you any of these things, it might be that you actually just maybe work with someone at some point or you buddy up with someone and you ask the questions of each other or you give advice or thoughts because as we said before, we can all associate words with people that we've spent time with, or we've seen, or we've observed. So I think this is something to start thinking about what you want to be known for, because I'm going to give you some examples of practical takeaways of things you can actually go and do, some action points, and understanding what you stand for is going to be really important. Okay? So I want to touch on something called invisible PR. So we talked about the fact that people will have an opinion of you, in any type of context. And I want to just give you an example that I'm hoping is going to work from Stephen Bartlett. He would be someone else that we could probably come up with a few words to describe. So just to give you a brief overview, if you've not seen this clip before, it is quite an interesting clip. So Stephen Bartlett talks about how when he was at Social Chain, so you all know he had a business he grew with Social Chain, he was on a flight and he saw the guy from Man vs. Food, and apparently in Social Chain they had this big thing about what's your favourite sandwich, and he put in the group chat on this flight, oh my God, the guy from Man vs. Food has just got on the plane, and they were all saying, go and ask him what his favourite sandwich is, because that was what they did. And he went over to speak to him, and this guy, he's called Steve something, puts his hand up and says, no, not now. And that was his first interaction with this Steve Man vs. Food guy. And he was talking about how that example set the tone for this guy. And then, of course, after that, over the months and years that followed, Stephen Bartlett's podcast got huge, didn't it? So this guy wanted to go on his podcast, and he brought up the example around that being his impression. And then he also goes on to talk about someone in his team who was quite quiet at work, but was always doing things to support other team members. So when someone was ill, he went and got something to help them. And then when they came to consider who they wanted to promote into a particular role, it was the guy that was kind of quietly doing things for other people in the background. And it was this whole thing around invisible PR, so people observing how you interact and behave. Anyway, it's a good clip. Check it out. So we haven't got loads of time, and I can talk quite a lot, so I'm going to have to kind of race through some of this stuff. And it might be that if this is if these are things that are interesting to you, maybe you take the picture of some of the slides, because this is stuff to come back to that's going to be helpful at some point. In fact, it should be helpful now. So this is my structure, I guess, around how you get more visible and things that you can be focusing on. So my first one is around relationships. So it's thinking about how you come across in every situation when you are meeting people. And I think when I look back on my career, this is one of the things that I didn't grasp that early. Whereas even now, right at the start, as you're about to kind of embark on a career, some of you might have part-time jobs already. You're already making an impression in those part-time jobs. I've had a job since I was 12. I think that might be illegal now, but it wasn't in the old days. So I'd always had a job, and I would get promoted at quite a young age into like supervisory roles. I had a supervisor job at 16, and it was because I was doing a lot of this stuff, and I was trying to, even though I didn't feel confident inside, and I still don't feel confident inside even at my age now. I'm always a bit nervous or worried about something, and that never really goes away. Don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I am able to put on a bit of a front for some of this stuff. And if I spot an opportunity and there's someone that I need to meet, whether it be to help the charity or to help a client, then I'm going to take that opportunity. And you've sometimes just got to kind of fake it a little bit. So it's thinking about whenever you're in a situation where you're going to meet someone, you do these things, right? Now, a friend of mine, she is an expert networker, and she was in the queue at an airport in Barbados and managed to find a client by just chatting to someone in the queue. There are opportunities everywhere, and you just never know who knows someone. It's a small world, so have a look at that. The next thing is visibility. So you touched on, I think very briefly, you touched on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, in terms of the corporate world, whether it be going into a job or having a business, at the moment, that is the platform. Now, if you end up going into a creative industry, you might find something like TikTok or Instagram or whatever the new thing ends up being, is being slightly more relevant. But this is always going to be an important platform for business. Now, most people are on LinkedIn but lurk. So they'll be spying on what's going on, but they won't actually be creating content. Now, to create content on LinkedIn, it's one post a week. That's what LinkedIn define as being a content creator on LinkedIn. That is nothing. We can all do one post a week. Those of you that are on LinkedIn at the moment, you could do an amazing post about this event today and what you've learned and what your takeaways are. That is going to stand out straight away to an employer. Hey, they've come to this event and they're learning and they're thinking about what they're going to do next. So I guess if I was to encourage you to do one thing as a result of coming to this, it would be to get a fully filled out, completed LinkedIn profile and start looking at what other people are posting, because you guys are so early on in this journey that if you just started posting once a week or once a fortnight and having a great profile, you would stand out immediately and you'll see opportunities that other people won't. So get visible on LinkedIn. And then finally, the last thing is really around looking for opportunities where you can be perceived as an authority in something. Now, that might feel weird. That might feel like a bit of a authority. That's a big, scary word at the stage you're at. But there are loads of ways that you can get some level of authority. So it might be that you start writing a blog about what you're passionate about, what you know about. You might be looking for opportunities maybe to start a podcast or go on someone else's podcast, or contribute to someone's website, do a talk. For some of you, the thought of standing up here might actually terrify the life out of you, but could you go and start somewhere small? Could you start speaking in a local group or at a school or whatever? There's opportunities everywhere, and each time you do one of these things, it leads to something else, it gives you something to talk about, and it will help you develop this level of authority. So, other ways that you can boost your brand right now, and I have tweaked this to make sure it is relevant to you and where you're at, is think about what kind of networking events you can go to. This is a networking event. You can speak to people that you don't know at this event. You can speak to the speakers. You can speak to other students. This is an opportunity for you to network. You can be connecting with people on LinkedIn and starting to grow your network already. You can volunteer within the community. So Pete mentioned that I do some charity work. So I chair a local charity that supports unemployed women across the region. And that is my voluntary role. And I've always had a voluntary role since I was about 22. I volunteered with the Samaritans for 8 years. I then went and did I've done lots of things. And that's never been intentional, but now it is, because I realised that actually I really enjoy volunteering for something that I'm passionate about. But actually it creates loads of opportunities for me that I hadn't even realised, and that's an added benefit. Speaking of relevant events, we've covered that. You could stand as a trustee or a governor. Charities are desperate for younger people to come and support them, to come and give their viewpoint. So it's a brilliant time, and that would massively stand out on your CV. You've got to find one you can get excited about, though, because we do this for free. It's voluntary. You've got to enjoy it. Otherwise, it feels like a job. Writing blogs, articles, we've talked about that. We've talked about podcasts. You could do a TEDx talk. You can do a TEDx talk from any age. Again, might be really scary, but if there's something that you're passionate about, the amount of support that you get when you do a TEDx talk in the lead up to it is brilliant. It's like free speaker training, so you could look at that. And then finally, say yes to stuff. So even if it feels scary, or maybe even especially if it feels scary, say yes to things that are going to challenge you, and think about how you're going to get your confidence up or your knowledge up so that you feel like you can contribute to whatever it is that you've said yes to. So how do we measure success? So if you're spending time doing things that are going to elevate your career or get you more visible, you want to start with thinking about, well, why am I doing this? Is it an ego thing? Is it to get a job in a certain industry? Is it to work for a certain company? Is it to set your own business up? So think about why you want to do things, because otherwise it does become a bit fluffy and pointless. So think about what those objectives might be and the reason why you're doing it, because then if you know what you stand for, which we covered at the beginning, and you think about why you're doing it, this will all fit together. You might want to think about things like social media metrics. So if you are actively thinking about LinkedIn as an example, you might want to start thinking about how do you grow your network and how do you measure that? Because if you measure it, you're going to start growing it more. Google, so as you start doing a lot more of these things, what might happen is you pop your name into Google and you'll see all the stuff that comes up. So some of you might have a few things on there already. If not, have a look and see what comes up now. And this is probably a good point to highlight with doing a social media audit, because at the moment, probably what comes up is any social media platforms that you're on, and you might realise that your profiles are maybe more open than you'd want for an employer to see, and that might be a reminder to kind of tidy up some of those things. And then I guess the ultimate thing is you would measure leads generate or career progression opportunities in terms of the so what and what these things lead to. Okay, I know I'm totally out of time. There's a couple of resources here that if you're interested in this kind of thing will be useful. So that's my latest book, loads of this stuff in detail. And I've also got a weekly podcast that's very well described in terms of the episodes. So if you wanted to focus on speaking or you wanted to focus on LinkedIn, you'd be able to find some episodes on the podcast that are going to give you a bit more information about some of this stuff. So my final thought is to do one thing. So some of the stuff I've spoken about today, you might think, I should do that, I should do that. Hopefully a lot of the stuff I've said today, you think, I should do that. But maybe just start with one thing from today and think about what that's going to be so that you can start getting this snowball effect and start to see some of the impact that having a personal brand is going to give you.